What's happening? J.C Agajanian here, broker associate with the Whissel Realty Group, and the numbers for May are in, which means it's time for a San Diego County real estate housing market update for June of 2024. Let's get into it. The weather is finally warming up here in San Diego, and to be honest with you, the market's warming up as well. We've had kind of a slow year last year with the rates really being high and people uncertain of what to expect, but a lot of that has changed. People are either finally accepting where rates are at or being a little more optimistic with things improving in the future and feeling more comfortable about moving forward right now. So before we get into the details of what's happening right here in San Diego County, we're going to take a step back and comment on the economy as a whole, because the Fed's rates are affecting our mortgage rates and the economy in general, which definitely trickles down to us here in San Diego. So let's talk about that for just a minute. These rates have not exactly dropped precipitously like we forecasted probably this time last year. We thought we might get multiple rate cuts by the Fed, which of course are going to influence our borrowing rates for our mortgages, but we haven't seen one yet. We just did have a pretty favorable inflation report and meeting with the Fed, and while it wasn't so favorable that they wanted to stop what they're doing and call for a rate cut right away, they did let us anticipate at least one coming before the end of the year and likely multiple next year. So on a national level, things are kind of holding steady, getting better, but slower than we anticipated, with some optimism that things are going to continue to move in the right direction as the months go on. But as we look into some of the more local figures for our real estate market in particular, one of the biggest storylines we've been watching is the inventory as a whole. That inventory figure really helps us understand where we're at right now, and it gives us an indication of what to anticipate and expect for the rest of this year. So let's get into it. As we look at new listings this month compared to this time last year, the numbers are up. We've actually added about a little more than 16% in inventory in the month of May compared with the month of May of 2023. That's positive. However, we have to keep in mind, we had some of the lowest inventory levels we've seen in over 20 years last year, which is why there was so little transactions in total taking place. It wasn't that the buyers were only turned off, it was also that the sellers were not motivated to move either. So we had very low transaction count as a whole. So we would anticipate higher levels of new listings coming on the market right now just because of how low things were last year. So that's positive, but not earth-shattering. Following that up with the amount of pending listings, or how many properties are going off the market at the same time, that number is up as well, but not as much as the amount of new properties coming on the market. That number is only up about 8.6%. So we've got a higher level of properties coming on the market and a higher level of properties going off, but not quite as much. So it seems just on those two bits of data, we are moving towards increasing our overall inventory levels. So not necessarily a bad thing when you hear about the month supply numbers that we're going to talk about in just a minute. But before we get to that, let's talk about the days on market, or how many days is it going to take to sell your home if you decide to list it? Well, right now the average is just under a month at 27 days. It's one of the longer market times we've seen in recent years, certainly in light of the mania that we saw during the COVID years. Properties were coming on the market and going off in extremely short periods of time, sometimes less than a week. That was an insane market. We are moving towards normal. Not quite there yet, but we're moving towards normal. And 27 days is actually lower than the historic averages that we see when we look at large plots of data on our housing inventory. Which leads me back to what I just mentioned, which is our month supply of inventory. So that number is actually up quite a bit. There was a 50% increase in May compared to last year's May numbers. That seems really great if you're looking for a property, but bear in mind that only brings us to a 2.1 month supply of inventory of homes here in San Diego County. What does that mean? Well, we're still in the seller's market is the short answer. We typically see a 4 to 6, sometimes 5 to 8 month supply of inventory as a neutral market, and the closer we get to that 5-6 month supply mark, the stronger the buyer's position when writing and negotiating terms and price on those homes. To give it some context, we would probably need to bring about 6,000 new homes to market all at once, or add some combination of new listings and new developments into San Diego County, that 6-month threshold of a neutral real estate market. And we're pretty far away from that right now. So on the one hand, we've got these higher rates that have kind of stuck around. We've seen recent drops a little bit, but they've still been hovering in the high 6s to low 7 ranges, which is still kind of turning people off a little bit. But on the other hand, we still have a shortage of supply and not a ton of options for buyers to choose from when they're looking at homes to go tour, potentially write offers on. So overall, we're kind of seeing projection leading us to a relatively flat market for the rest of the year. We're not anticipating, deep discounts for people that have been waiting for the market to blow up and get a super great deal. And we're not anticipating the skyrocketing appreciation that we saw in recent years as well, taking us through the end of the year at a completely different price point that we are looking at right now. So in line with the same thinking of prices staying roughly flat, we're also anticipating the accepted sale price when compared with the list price the seller is asking to be right around that 100% mark as well. Maybe high 90s, maybe just barely over 100%. As long as people are pricing their homes right for the product, which is what it is, that they're presenting and how they're presenting it, if it looks well, if it's in good condition, and that's priced appropriately, that's probably what you can anticipate. No huge discounts off price, and likely not the requirement to pay tons of money above and beyond that asking price either. As long as the seller and the listing agent are doing their job right, you as a buyer agent are probably going to kind of get what you see as far as pricing when it comes into negotiate and put contracts together. So with us anticipating not a ton of change throughout the rest of this year, should you do? What situation are you in? The cool thing is that pressure that so many buyers experience to write, super aggressive offers, removing a lot of contingencies, tight terms, and really strong offering prices above and beyond what is being asked. Now, that's not the market we're going to be in any longer. At the same time, we're also not forecasting deep discounts or the ability to take 5, 10, 15% off the sale price in order to get into it. Things are pretty stable right now. So what does that mean to you? It's actually a really good opportunity to make a move without some of that pressure that so many of us talked about and some of you have actually felt in recent years. The time to sell and move is going to be a little less stressful than if it was a skyrocketing market with things moving so quickly that you can barely keep up. And if you don't have a home and that's not a need for you, but you are wanting to get in and you're kind of waiting to see if you might be able to get some better pricing in the near future, unfortunately, we don't really see that coming our way either. The good thing is, like I said, things are stable. You can sleep on it if you want and make a decision in the morning. And some properties are still moving pretty quickly, but for the most part, there's a little more normalcy in this market. But don't take that for granted, because this market is ever shifting, and we are anticipating a little bit better environment through the rest of this year and coming next year, both with rates and movement in general. So if it's something you've been thinking about, instead of waiting, because even if rates drop a little, but not significantly enough to be back down to the ridiculous rates of the 2s and 3s, it's still going to stir up a lot of demand in the market, and it will drive more competition and ultimately competition for homes. Unless we somehow add thousands and thousands of properties to the market, it's going to start driving pricing upward again. And these are all things that we think is pretty reasonable to expect in the coming year. So the idea is better to do that now and have the opportunity to refinance later on than to wait and see if things get better or worse and then make that move later. That's a good way to find yourself kind of on the sidelines instead of in the game and taking advantage of what over the long term is always going to happen, which is steady appreciation. I hope this is actually a little bit of a comforting video for you. I hope it gives you the ease of mind to think a little bit more seriously about whether or not this time right now is right for you and your family to make a move. Drop a comment below. Let me know what you're thinking about this market, if you've got ideas of making a move in the near future. And of course, I'm always happy to chat if you want to bounce this off one-on-one offline. I look forward to talking to you soon.